I mean, you can tell people, right? Tell people your camera isn't working now, so that's why you're not on camera. I mean, sometimes things like that happen, okay?
Yes.
I understand. I mean, you can tell people,
Hi,
right?
I'm sorry we're a couple minutes. We're live now, right?
I mean, sometimes things like that happen, okay?
Yeah, it says meeting is now streaming live.
Yep, you're good to go. It's now streaming. We have 24 people participating. I am going to make you the host, Dwayne, okay?
Great. Sorry for our little bit late start. I'm actually having video problems with my uh, computer camera for some reason. We can actually get by for that, semper paratus. The main thing is that our presenter has video and he'll be able to put the slides up. So I'm going to do my welcome, and it'll just be audio. It's got a still picture of me up there. So welcome, and thank you all for joining us. My name is Dwayne Rose. I'm a division chief in the H Directorate for Recruiting and Retention. You know, one of the ways we can help meet our objectives is to get new members, retain current ones, is to offer training that will support the knowledge that our HR team needs, and that's why we're here. Today's training is on critical forms, including the 7035 change in membership status. Uh, we're all about to enter the busy season with disenrollments and retirements and such. So we're hoping this session will kind of help you prepare for that. Um, Coming soon, we'll have another training. It'll be onboarding new members. Um, I would mention for the purposes of delivery, we grouped the auxiliary districts into Eastern, Central, and Pacific. Uh, it's sort of similar to you've probably seen already, the Coast Guard has recently renamed uh, district groups, and they are using names now instead of numbers. That made it a little more user friendly, I think. I would also mention the reason that we're using YouTube is that some of our sessions have too many participants for Zoom to support it. Uh, when we send a presentation to you on ZooTube, we can train many more people in less time, but we do regret we don't have the interaction between presenter and participants that Zoom offers. However, in YouTube, below the YouTube presentation screen, there'll be a topic description, and under that, the last sentence includes a link to a form you can use to submit questions. You can do that during the presentation or even after the presentation, and we'll still get those. This presentation is being recorded, and the same link that you use to access the presentation can take you back to it later. Uh, and you'll also have a question link even after the presentation, as I mentioned. If you have any issues with the form or you'd rather not use this form, you can also email me. My email is in the email invitation for the training. And at the end of the presentation, Rio will cover our contact information. So anyway, sorry about the slow start and no video, but maybe it's better if I don't have video. Anyway, let's get underway. Your presenter is Rio Anas. He's a branch chief in the H Directorate in my division. He is also a division commander. He's a DSOHR, an SOHR, FSOHR, and FSO Marine Safety. I guess he had that last one in case he gets a little bored with what he's already got to do. Um, I share or have done all these same offices with Rio, except for the last one. Anyway, let's get underway. I think we have a great program for you tonight. Take it away, Rio.
Okay. Okay. Are you seeing that, Dwayne?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Welcome, everybody. So, as Dwayne said, this session is on the critical forms. We're going to go in depth review on the 7035, the 7056, and 7028. Sorry here. I've got something blocking my screen. Okay, now it finally got out of the way. I don't know what that was. Okay, processing critical forms to support, the auxiliary and member needs. Does it matter? Well, yeah, it really does matter because the more efficient we can be in handling that for our members, the more comfortable they're going to be with, seeing how easily things are done when they have, issues that need to be taken care of. So critical form success, efficiently and correctly, accomplishing what is needed for the member and for the auxiliary. That's what we need to do. So the HR position, that really is one of the most valuable positions of all of our bridge staff, since you're the lifeblood of the auxiliary. Without HR, there are no members. We are mission critical. And we're always going to be there for the members. We're handling the prospect from the beginning and the recruiting, and then getting them through the initial phase with the application process. And then they're on board, they have their member ID number. So, we're going to be assisting them, from start throughout their entire service, because they may have things that they need to take care of later on as well. And we are the go-to people for members, whatever it might be, even if it's something that's not in, your particular area of knowledge or, your direct function, you can still assist them, even if you can find somebody else that can directly, help them out. But you want to be that go-to person that help them on their way. And remember, we are Team Coast Guard, Semper Paratus. So a presentation note here, the content of this training is to promote, efficient, correct, nationwide standard practices throughout all flotillas for the tasks that we commonly perform. It's also intended to offer district HR officers, basic vetted training materials, that they can use over again for new officers, HR or flotilla commanders, and also to refresh, current officers, so that they don't have to try to recreate training again. However, we do understand that there might be differences in these practices between districts and DIROCs. And in these instances, you should consult with your chain of leadership for direction. Again, we try to make a common guideline and a practice that everybody can use, but we do know that there are some, nuances between different districts. So what we're going to cover is a 7035 change of membership status. And that could be the final notice for outstanding dues, the retirement from the auxiliary, transfers, voluntary disenrollment, or even a death of a member. And then we'll also go through the 7056 member transfer request. And there's two types of transfers. There's the in-district and the out-district. So in-district, that's pretty easy to understand. Out-district, that's a little more complicated, meaning we might have somebody going out to a different district, or we might have somebody coming into our district. Communication is really critical for this type of transfer. And then we're also going to cover the 7028 member change of information. So the important forms tip, critical forms. Read and refer to the instructions, both in the forms and provided separately at the end. Each form does have, an additional page or two for instructions. You cannot backdate a change. You might post-date with agreement from DIROCs. Always complete all relevant information and sign when indicated. Mistakes do cost time, and they might not achieve disenrollment in the desired calendar year if you don't get it in on time. Always ask questions as often as you need it. We want you to be comfortable with the process. We don't want you to guess, so always ask for help. So where do you find these forms? Same with new member application form. We go to the forms warehouse. This will be the one place that you always find the most common and current form to use. So the 7028 change of member information form is here. The 7035 change of member status, that's the disenrollment form and also transfer. And then we have the 7056 member transfer form. So the 7035 change of membership status. There's different sections on this form. There's a process to go to fill this out correctly. Section 1 is mostly for the flotilla commander to get the form started. Section 2, this is where the member shows their choice. If you've actually had communication with them and it's not a dues issue. Section 3, this is back to the flotilla commander to finish off on the form before they send it on to their DSOHR. And then the DSOHR will take care of section 4 and then send it along to DIROCS. So this 7035 form does have a page 2 with instructions. This is a little bit small print here, so we've kind of enlarged it a little bit on the next couple of slides. So it's pretty easy to follow through that, telling you what to do in each of the boxes, how to fill that out. And there's, lots of choices somebody can make if they are requesting their own disenrollment. And it's a little farther down the page also enlarged so you can see that. So you obtain the current 7035 form online through the auxiliary warehouse, and that's the link for it there, forms.cdaux.org. And you always look up in the left corner, making sure that you're on the most current form, which you would be if you actually download it from the forms warehouse. Consistent thing you'll always fill out on every form is going to be the member's last name, first name, middle initial, and their member ID number. If it's a dues issue and you've not had any contact, the flotilla commander needs to document contact attempts. The flotilla commander is to complete the information regarding non-payment of dues, including the year and the amount. And if this is not a dues situation, then you don't really need to do anything more in section 1 than just have the member's name and their ID number. And always sign the date of 7035 when it's a dues issue. That starts the clock on a 30-day notice to pay. We'll have some samples later on to show you. Does your district have a schedule? It really should. This way we could stay on course with how we're handling dues. So this is an example. August 1st, you're sending your dues billing out to all members. You may do that by email. Maybe you're sending it out by, regular mail. Most commonly, I'm guessing, email is used. Then at least a month later, a second billing needs to go out for those who haven't paid in a timely fashion. Maybe you're sending another email. Maybe now you're making a phone call or sending text to remind people, hey, you got to get your dues in. Then by October 1st, we have people who've not paid dues. We now need to get their attention a little more. We have to send out the 7035 form, partially filled out, telling them if they don't pay their dues within 30 days, that they will be disenrolled. So this is their 30-day notice. November 1st, if no payment or response on the member's intentions, the 7035 gets completed and sent on its way to DSOHR, so disenrollment can happen. By 11/15, the DSOHR forwards the 7035s to DIROCS for the non-payment of dues. And DIROCS on 12/1 will process, and everything should go smoothly at that point. If you have any later action, if you're not making these dates, there's a potential that the processing of disenrollments won't happen until after first of the year. Then your flotilla might be on the hook for those dues from district. Timeline only works if flotillas stay on schedule. If you want to start a little bit sooner, that's not a bad idea. So when follow dues timeline will provide you consistent process for all flotillas. It communicates what has to happen and when. It ensures sufficient contact attempts made. It documents each step and each contact and allows the 7035 to be processed before year end and appropriate members disenrolled. It ensures flotilla is not charged for the members. So there are different options on the 7035. If your members, contacting you and asking that to be, retired, or they'd like to transfer, or they have a voluntary disenrollment, there's different boxes here that can be checked for that. And we always include the ID card if possible, and make a note if it's not returned and indicate why it wasn't returned. And this section has to be signed by the member. This is verifying their intentions. Retirement, remember, qualified after 15 years of service. And when you get the form, verify that date of enrollment. Okay, that's probably already filled out for you by the member, but let's check and make sure. The member may receive, upon retirement, a certificate, a PIN, an ID card. Just check with your DSOHR or DIROCS for your district protocol. Not everybody operates the same way, and they may have different things that they'll send out to recognize the service of that member. If it happens to be an issue where the member has deceased, you'll want to give the deceased family name and address for the next of kin. DIROCS does send out condolences to the family, recognizing that member's service. So you'll, in section 3 here, if you, on your form, you can complete it to the district, like, 091 or 9CR, or even the DSOHR's name. It really doesn't matter. I've not found that to be, critical, but, you can put something in there. Give the disenrollment effective date. You cannot backdate. So indicate for non-payment or members request voluntary. So you'll want to put that on your next line. Verify with your DSO whether the division commander's signature is needed. That used to be critical. Now it says optional. But at least when you were dealing with a 7035 and you were sending it along to your DSOHR, copy your division commander. They should be in the loop. They should know what members are, leaving and why. Forward these to your chain of leadership. Follow the forms flow. So here we have an example of a non-payment of dues situation. So section 1, we always have to have the member's last name, first name, initial, and their member ID number. That is same on every form. Then we have to cover the year. So this is for the dues for the next upcoming years, we know. So that's 2026, the amount of the dues, and then the flotilla commander's name, and the dues notice date. So this is October 1st. We are now sending this out to the member, advising them we've not received their dues, and they now have 30 days to pay dues. You can also fill out the flotilla number, but nothing else needs to be filled out in section 2. So let's say we've not gotten any response from this member, and it's now gotten to be November 1st. You need to forward this form on so that this member can be disenrolled for non-payment of dues. So you complete the section for DSOHR, the effective date, that'd be 11/15/2025. You were just figuring this out by November 1st that they haven't paid. So you're given a little time here to get it to your DSOHR. You check the box for recommend disenrollment with that effective date, and also check the box for non-payment of financial obligations. I usually put a note on the form indicating I've had no response from all communication attempts and see email attached, since I can email these onto my DIROCs. And in my email, it will have the communication attempts. And this would have been coming to me from the flotilla commander. They are sending me the email telling me what's going on with this member, and they'll have that attached 7035 for me to finish up. If you are sending your 7035s out notifying the member on October 1st, you should send it with a return receipt requested, certified mail or priority mail. You don't have to get it, but you have to try. Of course, then also the flotilla commander needs to sign off on this and date it. This is an example of a letter that might be sent out notifying members of dues for the upcoming year. And then when you're sending the 7035 to this member, advising them they have 30 days to pay dues, send a copy of this along with it. Whatever reason, maybe they didn't get the initial email, maybe they didn't get the text on their phones. I mean, there could be all sorts of excuses or whatever, but this is now by regular mail, they're getting notification. So we want to give them the information that if they really want to make this good, here's what you need to do to pay your dues. So we have a member that's requesting disenrollment. So this is their choice. Again, section 1, you always start with the member's name and their ID number. We'll always have the flotilla number here. The date, well, it's whatever date they notified you. It can be any day through the year. But let's say that they just decided to do this as you're doing your dues notification. So, you know, we want to have this done in a timely fashion, so they should get it to you at least by 11/1 of 2025. So they'll need to check the box, I desire to disenroll, my reasons are, and this is kind of like they could fill in with that whatever they want. Boxes 1, 2, and 3 here are drop downs, so they can select some other drop down information, but they don't have to fill out the boxes, or they can just fill out one. We have a box here for returning their ID card. And if they did not return their ID card, we will note what the reason was. So maybe it was lost or whatever. And then here the member has to sign. Section 3, flotilla commander can finish up on this. They indicate their DSOHR, checkbox, recommend disenrollment effective date. And then this will be checked at member's request. And then the flotilla commander can sign this and get this on its way to the DSOHR. So we have a requested retirement for a member. Again, section 1, you have to have the person's name and their ID number. You have to have a flotilla number. Date situation again. Maybe they just decided this during this due situation. So they elected, well, rather than paying dues, I'm just gonna, call it quits. So you need to get a date in there. Again, retirements can happen any time of the year, but as we get to the end time of the year, dates are more critical. We'll have a checkbox for I desire to retire. And then we have their enrollment date. And again, verify that. Go to Aux Data 2 or Aux Directory and verify their enrollment date. We will check their ID card again. Have they returned it to us? If not, why not? And then the member has to sign this. They're verifying this is their request. Then the flotilla commander will finish up on this. Get the DSOHR on there. Member desires and is eligible for retirement status. check that box, yes. Flotilla commander signs, dates, and gets it on its way to the DSOHR. Now, as a DSOHR in my district, when I'm pouring this on to my DIROCs, I will put in a little note here highlighted, please send retirement certificate and PIN. So this would be up to your DSOHR how they want to handle it. For me, it's just a reminder. I want to make sure my DIROCs sees that, and we'll take that action. For the member ID card, we do attempt to get it back. Occasionally, it's never issued or wasn't renewed. Maybe the person was still in AP status, which we hope not, but we know that there are members that are in AP status for too many years, so they never would have had an ID card. So if you get it from the member, you can return it with the 7035 copy to your DSOHR, or checking with your DSOHR, do they prefer you to just destroy it on your own and not bother mailing it? Because these forms, the 7035 forms, can be sent by email, so we can avoid that extra postage by sending an ID card. I trust my flotilla commanders to destroy these and not bother mailing them to me. Again, if it's not retrieved, you need to indicate that prominently on your 7035 that you tried and you did so, and what the reason was that it was not returned. So here's the situation for a death of a member. So again, you have to have the person's name, their ID number. Nothing else in section 1 is needed. We get down to section 2, flotilla number again. Again, this situation can happen any time of the year, but as we get to the end of the year, time's a little more critical. So there's nothing else for a death of a member. There's really nothing else to put in section 2. It doesn't pertain to this situation. We get down to section 3, fill in the DSOHR information. We're going to have the check box for death of member. If you have the date of death, that's nice. You can provide that in that box, but it's not critical. The next box for name and address of kin, that really is needed so that DIROCs can send out, condolence letter, recognizing, the service, and then the flotilla commander will sign and date this, and then send it along. I don't know how your district might handle the situation. In my district, 9 Central, as the DSOHR, when I get these and I am forwarding on to DIROCs, I also copy that email to the Past Commanders Association, because they track, member deaths, and they will recognize them at our district conferences on the final day with ringing of the bell for the members who passed the bar. So we have a member transfer request situation. So again, we need to have the member's name, ID number, get the flotilla number down here in section 2, the date. Transfers can happen anytime, but we get to the end of the year and this, something maybe was, spurred on by, the dues notification that went out. So timing is critical. So you fill in the box, or the member should fill in the box. I desire to transfer to flotilla. They get that in there with the district number. That way we'll know whether we're dealing in district or out district. And then the member has to sign this, indicating that's their preference. And also, we need to have a 7056 along with this form. That has to be completed too. Section 3, for the flotilla commander to finish up here, they just have the DSOHR information, and then they'll sign and date it and send it on to the DSOHR along with that 7056 form. So for a 7056 member transfer, as soon as you open this form, in the forms warehouse, which again, that's where you go to find the most current form, and we're dealing with March of 2023 form here. There will be this pop-up box, and it will go away only when you select that the district transfer is within district or out district. And by selecting that, it changes the form for the situation. In this pop-up box, it talks about can be filled out either electronically or manually. That means electronically you can do it by way of PDF online and email as an attachment. Manually means you are now printing it out and you're going to fill it out by hand, which you can still scan it and attach it to an email. Member transfer form also has instructions. They're pretty comprehensive. So for a member transfer within, can be completed by the flotilla commander to assist the member with the transfer, but it does need to have the member's signature. We need to know what flotilla the member is transferring from and to up in this first section. The current flotilla commander will mark approved and then forwards it on to the receiving flotilla commander. Forward through your chain of leadership forms flow. And again, this can be done electronically. So here's kind of a sample here, filling it out. You need to have the member's name up here, the member's signature, and you have the member number, signature date, and the effective date. We have from what flotilla to what flotilla. And again, you route this with a 7035 form to your DSOHR. So the current flotilla commander's name will be here. They'll sign off and presumably they will mark approved. My recommendation, because of the flow of this, when it gets to the flotilla, receiving flotilla commander, do they know where to send it from there? They may not have the director of auxiliary, the DIROC's contact information. So they should be sending it back to the DSOHR. I kind of like to help this process along in my district, where as soon as I have it signed by the current flotilla commander and it's sent to me, I'll manage it from that point forward, getting the receiving flotilla commander signature and then getting it on its way to DIROC's. I kind of want to try to make the process easier so that the flotilla commanders don't have to be labored by following up with, a signature by another flotilla commander. So now we have an out district transfer form. And if you'll know, it kind of changes a little bit toward the bottom here. Gets a little bit more wonky, I guess. People use that term. But we have the current flotilla commander. Then we have a receiving flotilla commander. Then it goes back to the current director of auxiliary, who then sends it to the receiving director of auxiliary. So that can be a little confusing, especially when you're receiving flotilla commanders in another district. They're not going to have that contact information for, the current director of auxiliary, where the transfer is coming from. So again, we need to have this filled out with the member's name. They have to sign it. They have their member ID, their date, the effective date, and then there's something added here. So you have the flotilla number and then the district number. And then you have the flotilla number that they're going to, and then that district number. In addition, we also have that member's phone number and their email address so that they could be contacted during the transfer process if needed. Again, route this with your 7035 to your DSOHR. So for me, it's highly recommended that you route this initially through your DSOHR, who can manage the approval and signature of receiving flotilla, and then get it on its way to DIROC's. That way, the flotilla commanders aren't, bogged down trying to figure out who are they supposed to send it to. for another DIROX. So we have a change of membership form, the 7028. Now, I do know that a lot of these changes can be done online, and then they're approved by your FSOIS or SOIS, but this can be done by hand as well. And you go to the forms warehouse to get the most current form, and this has been updated just last year, 2024. If the member does make a change in Aux Data themselves, they should send this form along to their FSOIS anyway, so that the FSOIS can verify what change was requested and did it get completed properly in Aux Data by that member. Without the form, the FSOIS is not sure what was done and was it done correctly. This form also has instructions. You got 3 pages of instructions, but they're mostly skills bank codes, so they really add a lot of those. The main instructions are just here on the page 2. So what we covered: critical form, the 7035 change of membership status. We have a final notice for outstanding dues, retirement from the auxiliary, transfer to another flotilla, voluntary disenroll from the auxiliary, and death of a member. And let me point out here, I thought of something that might be, critical for you to know. Let's say you sent out your information to a member and they've not responded at all, and you've gone through the whole process to have them disenrolled. You sent it to the DSOHR, who then forwarded it on to DIROX to have this person disenrolled. Lo and behold, middle of December, this member finally contacts you and says, "Hey, I want to pay my dues and stay in." It's not too late. We can still accept your dues, but you need to make immediate contact with your DSOHR, who could then immediately contact DIROX to have this disenrollment undone. And it's relatively easy process for DIROX to do that. Now, keep in mind, if this member waits 30 days or more, maybe they contact you February 1st of next year saying, "Hey, I really want to stay in the auxiliary," that's a little too late. Not only should they pay their dues, but they're going to need to fill out a new member application form. At least here in 9th Central District 9, I'm told 30 days is the cutoff. They can make the change to undo a disenrollment within 30 days, but after that, an application is needed. So we also covered a 7056 member transfer request. So to another flotilla, it'd be in the same district. That's relatively easy. For out district, different district altogether, that gets a little bit more complicated. So definitely would say make sure that your DSOHR is looped in on that, especially if you are not seeing any progress and you're asking them to check the status. If they were never in on a loop to begin with, that's going to be a little tough for them to check the status on something they didn't know about. We also covered the 7028 member change form, which is pretty easy for members changing any kind of information whatsoever on their profile. So we are at the end here. Dwayne, I think this is where you'd like to add some more comments and information.
Yes, thanks, Rio. I just had a couple thoughts. I don't feel that Rio missed anything, but as I was listening, I had a couple thoughts based on, I've been doing HR almost as long as I've been in the auxiliary, which is, this is my 15th year. I just, most of what the session has been about is the 7035, because it's about money. And, we want to have members, but they do have to pay their dues. So just a couple thoughts. I would say with dues, always remember to stay on the schedule. Maybe start earlier than the timeline. There's no reason you can't do that. The timeline is logical, but it's also kind of tight. There's usually a lot of demands on your job for other things besides just doing 70-35. So if you get a little bit of a head start, that can make it easier. Because if members don't pay the dues and they're disenrolled by the end of the year, or they don't get disenrolled by the end of the year, rather, your flotilla is going to have to pay their dues. And as long as they're off the auxiliary rolls by the end of the year, and often you've already paid the dues because the billings from finance often become members are taken off the books. You will normally get a credit for those dues as long as the person is off the books by the end of the year. One thing I think is important is to do what I call stay in your lane. And that means don't make any commitments to another member or officer or the member about dues credits. It's really not our call and not our decision. I always refer members and officers to the FN officers for decisions or for details on how the system works. I don't want to speak on their behalf. And remember, we are asking members to pay their dues, even though we're not in the year that those dues are for. So they're technically not delinquent, but it's an auxiliary rule that you have to pay in advance, and your dues need to be paid. The end of the year before the dues are actually for. Another thing that's important is always have a good relationship with your DIROCs and their work schedule. They not only have your issues to attend to, but think about all the other, flotillas that they're dealing with. So if you are honest with them and you're punctual, you'll build a good relationship. So if you reach a point where you need a favor, they're much more likely to grant that. Know and work within your district's timelines. And always remember that I think Rio mentioned it several times, but every district is not the same, and some of them have different requirements. I think Rio mentioned that he could send 7035s by email, and when I was a DSOHR, I was not allowed to do that. It has to do with the PII information, the personally identifiable information, and the Coast Guard wants to protect that, but they're also a little consistent. Like applications have to be mailed, they can't be emailed in almost every case. But then I think on the transfer form, it says on the form that it's okay to email those. And even, I'm not sure I agree, but they do consider an ID number as PII. It's sort of like having somebody's email but not their password. Many people don't think it's that big a deal, but it's have to go by what the Coast Guard says. And we mentioned several times it's important to get members off the rolls. But if a member doesn't need to stay on the rolls to year end, don't ask for that, because if there's no benefit in it, there is some extra work that goes to making that happen. If somebody is no longer active and they haven't been for years, but they thought because they had paid their 2025 dues, they should go to the end of the year, but there's no point to that. So, and if you get them off the books, you're not making special arrangements. It just makes it easier for everybody. Also, it's, another thing that varies by district is retirement. Know how yours works. When I was DSOHR in Division 1, we had a former DCO that handled all notifications of death. So we would notify her of the death as soon as we found out. She would follow up with the family and get the information, and she would do a release to the district. But every district may be somewhat different. I like to think, as a division chief for recruiting and retention, one of my charges is having a value-added proposition that's attractive to people that want to become new members. And one of the things that's valuable to them, I think, is their CGX privileges. And I find, after 15 years, and usually if you've done 15 years, you've done a lot of hours of service. Uh, my proposal is why not give them the retirement ID card doesn't let you on base, and it doesn't give you CGX privileges. And so I feel why shouldn't we grant those privileges? You know, if we tell them when they're becoming members, that's part of what they'll get. You know, I think 15 years of service compares very favorably with many people that have been in the military, but they're only in for like 2 years, and they can, in many cases, still get those privileges. And I was also, as I was mentioning, with the death of a member, some districts don't really require a 70-35. So make sure you know which way, what they require, and follow that path. Like Rio said, transfers within the district are simpler than they are for someone that stays in the district. You know, the file, even though the flotilla changes, the file remains with that IROCS. So in all, it's a bit simpler process. And again, we've mentioned it in the presentation, but these forms are not as easy as they should be. You know, you get used to them pretty quickly, but don't be afraid to ask questions. I've never found any observers that aren't willing to help, and in turn you'll have a chance down the road where you can help other members. So that's all the things I can think of. But you know, again, we would really recommend appreciate your questions either through the form or through email. You can even call us if you want to. And again, that'll be in the contacts a little bit later. But also let us know what you thought about the presentations that we're giving. We're always open to ideas and suggestions. So that's all I had. But again, thank you for attending.
Okay. I would like to add that Dwayne and I are from the H Directorate, and that it's the recruiting and retention. And as leaders, you know, that is also your job, your responsibility, recruiting and retention. And at this later time of the year, when we're dealing with these 70-35s, if we've been doing our job with communicating with our members and you know, keeping them interested and active, and focus on that retention, we wouldn't have to do so many 70-35 disenrollments, hopefully. Remember to credit your time, training time, on tonight's presentation. This is training, so you can put that in your 7029 as 99D. And here's our contact information. And thank you for attending.
All right, thanks again for being with us. And again, we look forward to receiving your comments, and have a great evening. Thank you.
All right.
Good night, everyone.